This is the moment the deep state has feared. Their empire of secrecy is crumbling and justice is on the hunt. Blaze News The Mandate starts right now. Welcome in, everyone. I'm Jill Savage, joined by Editor-in-Chief Matthew Peterson.
You know, I snuck away to go to the Heritage Foundation Strategy Forum they had in Dallas today. A bunch of friends, interesting conversation. But everything happens all the time, apparently. What a Thursday we have for you tonight.
Yes, and we gave Bedford the day off, but there is still plenty of things to get to. So on Monday, we told you about Lindsay Halligan, the new prosecutor out there in Virginia, and she's expected to drop an indictment on former FBI Director James Comey any day. So the gloves are off, and the deep state's walls of invincibility is finally showing its cracks. So justice is no longer theoretical, and accountability is on the horizon. President Trump was asked about Comey this morning.
Mr. President, it seems like an indictment of James Comey is imminent. Would this be the first step in accountability for pushing the hoax of Russia, along with Barack Obama involved as well?
Well, I can't tell you what's going to happen because I don't know. You have very professional people headed up by the Attorney General, and Todd Blanche, and Lindsay Halligan, who's very smart, good lawyer, very good lawyer. They're going to make a determination. I'm not making that determination. I think I'd be allowed to get involved if I want, but I don't really choose to do so. I can only say that Comey's a bad person. He's a sick person. I think he's a sick guy, actually. He did terrible things at the FBI. And but I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen.
Things are starting to heat up. Mike Howell is the president of the Oversight Project, and your group has been digging into this story for months, Mike. So thanks for the time. So what should we really expect to see right now?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, these things are clouded in secrecy for a reason, right? The only reason we know about it now is because there are leaks coming out of the Eastern District of Virginia, presumably, I would have to guess, from the career officials down there and other, politicians that surround it. You keep in mind, Virginia has two Democratic senators who don't want to see this happen. And so you're seeing stories pop up about memos saying, don't do it. And, trying to cast it as Trump's calling for it. But in that clip you just played, he has no idea what's happening, just like we don't. We can only speculate on the possible charges that would be included in such a potential indictment. And the most likely thing relates to sharing of classified information. I mean, it's well established that Comey was using cutouts throughout his tenure to post things favorable to him, and that appears to be the case here. And then it relates to a potential lie to the Senate, specifically Senator Cruz in 2020, which makes the most sense because you have a statute of limitations issue of 5 years, which we're running up very shortly here on, which would explain why there's a hustle to get the charges on the book before that expires. So I have to guess that's what we're looking at.
So that would be September 30th, 2020, right? September 30th, 2025 would be the deadline. So they have to do it before then, which is why this would be happening. Tell us a little bit about what this would entail. I mean, is this if they get this out in time, is this sort of a slam dunk case, do you think?
Well, it would be related to the perjury. So the September 30th potential crime is him lying to Senator Cruz. So you're talking about USC 1001, which is lying to Congress under oath. And so you need to prove all the elements of what Comey then said to Cruz to be a knowing lie of a material fact. And you would think that in the course of DOJ looking into this and who they reportedly have spoken to, they've either gained, testimonial evidence from individuals saying something to the effect of, yeah, he told that person, or yeah, he told me, or documentary evidence, things that show the transmission of information. I assume it's something in those categories that are going into the indictment. And then it's just about proving the simple, elements of a lie. And this has happened, before. People have been charged with lying to Congress. I mean, go back to Roger Clemens. That was kind of one of the last major times this was used, but it's Congress flexing their muscles. I mean, people forget you have to tell the truth, particularly on such narrow and specific questions. So credit to Senator Cruz for really asking what needed to be asked and asking it how it needed to be asked, because that seems to be coming back to biting James Comey where he doesn't want to be bit.
And the timing is getting more interesting, right? We have his friend, Daniel Richman, who was subpoenaed. And they have the Wall Street Journal article, I believe it was September 17th, and ABC News had another one. So we're starting to see, right? Like, okay, subpoenas have been issued. Things are starting to happen out there in D.C. So what are the odds that we think that these things are all related and that friends are starting to flip on one another out there in the nation's capital?
Well, one can hope, right? Like this instance with Comey is going to be a terrific, at least, mapping exercise, separate and apart from the crimes that he may be guilty of. You're going to see kind of how the network operated in a very dangerous time period for very big lies and a lot of different criminal things that happened. It's not only to President Trump, but his supporters, and we just saw more evidence of that with the release of records rather about Arctic Frost, the investigation by the FBI that mapped out basically 82 different conservative organizations, including Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA. And so criminal process here, I think, will have ripple effects downstream. And you can only hope for more such, stones to be thrown in the water and ripples to happen. But I'll say on the risk to this is there are going to be people on the right that if this doesn't pan out exactly as, we would want it to, will say, all right, see, we tried it once, let's never try it again. And I think that's the real kind of DC Republican battle right now is there's a lot of people, and I hear the whispers saying, he shouldn't do this. He's just listening to a base. And who are those people that voted for the president? Why should we do, things they want to see happen? And they're going to use this as an example as to not to do more. And so all that to say, the Oversight Project, we're going to continue, throwing credible facts out there to help support potential criminal investigations and prosecutions when necessary. I'll add that there's a slam dunk one that we sent over to them relating to Christopher Wray, where you do not have such an urgent statute of limitations problem. Comey's just the tip of the iceberg. And I think that's great because it seems that President Trump, as busy as he is, the guy's got no shortage of things to do, is focused in on the lack of accountability issue, and changes are happening as a result, and that's a good thing.
I mean, this goes to show like the false nature of the DC narrative. I mean, because what a crock if there's Republicans saying, "Oh, if this doesn't work, that means we should never prosecute anyone." This is a slam dunk case as long as you get your papers filed on time. Guy lied to Senator Cruz in Congress. The director of the FBI, we can't have the director of the FBI lying about important things like trying to go after political opponents in Congress under oath. We can't have that. And here, if you subpoena his friend Richman, who he leaked to, boom, boom, here's a case, get it done. But as you importantly said, what that does is when you just do things, you empower yourself to do more things. And if you do this, you bring back the narrative of truth about what actually happened. As you said, you're going to have to mention Arctic Frost. You're going to have to talk about everything that they were doing at the time. And these things can have a snowball effect, exactly the opposite of what everyone in D.C. is saying. It will have a snowball effect and encourage them to possibly go after other people. So let's talk about that. I mean, who's next? Let's name some names. I mean, you mentioned Ray. Ray is someone who there's a slam dunk case. You've already shown it. Who else is next? I mean, what about Brennan? What about Clapper? What about people are talking about today? Barack Hussein Obama. I mean, who else is next on the list? Do you think?
Who do I think? I think it'll be the mortgage fraud cases, which are clearly have caught President Trump's attention. So there you have Schiff and Letitia James and Lisa Cook out there. I'll tell you a very good list to work off of that we would suggest, and we will be suggesting, and frankly have suggested, is look at President Biden's list of people he pardoned, people that they thought were most likely to be targeted because they were guilty, right? When they accepted the pardons, they admitted guilt. That's their terminology, not mine. They said that about President Trump when he issued pardons. So you go through the list of the people who received the autopen faked, bogus, no good pardons, and you start charging them for the crimes that they were pardoned for. And so that could be all sorts of abuses of civil rights, abuses in the handling of information, the leaking of information that relate to the January 6th committee, or things that happened out of the FBI, or, even, things that may not even be political necessarily in nature, but you have violent criminals that received pardons and got out of jail because President Biden wanted to set a world record for the most nonviolent drug offenders released. And to get there, he had to release violent people who weren't in there necessarily for drugs. And so there's no shortage of accountability. One more that makes perfect sense to me is Act Blue. I mean, to me, that just, people always ask me, What's the Oversight Project doing on Act Blue? And I always say there's nothing left to be done. It's been proven a million times over. It's ready for prosecution. I think looking at the networks, the movement of money makes complete sense. And I think it'll have so many immediate benefits to problems that are occurring today. Like these are the same well springs from which we see a lot of the misconduct being sourced, influenced, shaped, and directed right now as it relates to the street protest activity, the violence, whether directly or indirectly, and so on. It's about going after this whole corrupt organization that has inflicted so much damage.
Of course, I neglected to mention John the Walrus Bolton, who's also out there possibly with classified documents he shouldn't have possessed. But anyway, there's the list. The list is long.
The list is long. It's extensive. We hope to see some stuff happen. But Mike, if we do see this, would this really be the beginning of the end for the deep state immunity? Because we've seen this. That's DC as normal, right? Like that's the usual workings out there. So would this just actually signify the beginning of the end for them?
Yeah, I've always said, really, what we need is one major prosecution and conviction to set the tone. When somebody sees cuffs getting slapped on them for doing things that other people do, it really sends the message and has a chilling effect on criminal activity and the abuse of kind of government positions. And so one would go a very, very long way. That being said, I'm a greedy man. I want more. I want to see what I think was one of the gravest periods of abuse of the intelligence community and the legal system in America held to account. I see just major practices of violations of civil liberties, because that's ultimately like the core of what this comes down to. They're going after political enemies and those that who supported them because they wanted to win at that process because they couldn't win at a clear and clean democratic process. And so, like, whether one for Comey means the other dominoes all fall, I'm not sure. But I do know that if they are successful, and as Matt lays out, the facts are pretty clear on this, then it will change behavior going forward. There will be, the Comey precedent will be spoken about every time somebody considers doing something that legally they should not be doing, but otherwise have gotten away with, and have seen people like McCabe and, yes, up until now, even Comey go on to have really, successful and wealth-earning careers in TV and glamour and prestige after they do such awful things. And I think it would be a great disinfectant for our national politics and civic discourse if we saw one of these people held to account finally, and I hope that's Jim Comey.
Well, Mike, if you're greedy and the Oversight Project is greedy, then that means good news for America. Because if you're just collecting wins, America wins. That's just the way that it's going to go. So we hope that you're out there, you stay greedy, and you get everything done that needs to happen, because we're right on the edge of some major things happening right now.
Yes, I hope so. We're excited.
All right, Mike, thanks so much for the time. We'll catch you next time.
Thank you.
When we come back, we'll have Andrew Beck. We've talked about what needs to be done in the universities moving forward after Charlie Kirk's assassination. So now, what needs to happen with corporate America? We'll break it down next. Well, I want to send out a big thank you to everybody out there who watches and listens to this show, because BlazeTV only exists because people like you refuse to settle for all the legacy media down there that's the watered down coverage. We know they have endless spin. So this has never been about one voice or one company. It's about a movement of people who refuse to sit on the sidelines, and we need to carry this mission forward. When you subscribe, you're not just supporting a show, you're making sure that the truth has a platform today and for the next generation. So join BlazeTV today at blazetv.com/BNT and get $20 off right now. It's as low as $8 a month for the annual plan, and you can be a part of shaping the future. It's blazetv.com/BNT. The corporate world has spent years bending the knee to the leftists, from DEI madness to woke ad campaigns that insult the very customers that they rely on. In the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, it's time to ask, what should corporations be doing to get right with conservatives and middle America? Joining us now is Andrew Beck. He's a partner at Beck & Stone and a Claremont Institute vice president of communications. Andrew, it's great to see you again. And this is important because we've talked about the universities and what needs to be done. And there's so many different areas that we need to dive into. And looking at advertising and corporations is just as important right now in this moment of time. So how has the landscape changed since Charlie's assassination?
Well, I think you need to look back even before Charlie's assassination, where for years you had this politicalization of the corporations, where you would have these statements coming out and you would have corporations weighing in on very political issues, where folks would look at it and say, why is Disney talking about this? Why is these companies that are supposed to be just about business weighing in on cultural or political issues that felt smaller and smaller, and that also felt just more and more skewed to the left? So what we have now is something big happens on the right, and there's silence. There's no response. And it's something that is awful. It's something that's terrible. It's something that's terrorizing. And people are looking to corporations, hey, now's the time. Now's the time to say something. Condemn political violence. Say anything. And we just didn't see that this time around.
I mean, so the frustrating thing is everyone knows that everyone's frustrated with DEI and ESG. I mean, these fancy acronyms really mean the politicization of the workforce internally in various companies, and then also all the finance, all the flow of money, really the control over the advertising, over where the money comes from, the investment, and it all has been politicized. Everyone is sick of that, right? So have we seen any positive changes, since Trump took office, do you think, in that direction?
When you say people are sick of it, Matt, you are right. People in the corporations often are sick of it. There has been these top-down pressures. This is really what DEI and what you're describing with woke capital, it's a top-down pressure. It's not something that's coming up from the grassroots. It's not coming from their own employees. It's something that it feels they are responding to the market, and the market has been manipulated by the federal government, by these larger institutions, and people within the companies want there to be change. They are looking at the Trump administration and saying, here's the chance for us to return to business because we no longer have this pressure. So I think they now need to feel empowered. You actually can do this stuff.
I feel like the dynamic a lot of times is something like it right now is it's okay. It feels good if they can blame Trump, right? I mean, they can be, oh, well, Trump made us do this, so we had to do it. But secretly, they want to do it. This happened in Hollywood when we were going through the COVID stuff, right? Be like, oh, this is really bad that this person rejected a job because of the vax, and they were all secretly thinking this is great. And I wonder if some of that went on even with, say, Kimmel and the affiliates, where oh, well, Trump and the FCC made us do it, but actually some of us really wanted to can his ass anyway because he's a jackass and his ratings are down. That seems like progress to me. But that's what I'm questioning. Have we really seen a pushback against DEI and ESG in the last year?
You can say pushback, but it's often just silently dropping this stuff, just not doing it. And that, I think, is all that the conservatives and people who are consider themselves to be somewhat normal Americans want. They don't want these highly politicized left or right brands who are constantly weighing in on stuff. They would much rather see people return to business and make objectively good business decisions. And if this stuff that you're describing, Matt, is going on behind the scenes, that you need some sort of a justification that is like a culture war or is like a political justification just to can somebody or to make a business decision, that is a problem.
It speaks to me when you say, everybody in the actual business of these giant corporations, we can all think of so many people in our friends and family that are so sick and tired of DEI, right? They complain to all of their friends all the time about they're just done with these woke measures. So when you look at this, do you actually think that corporate leaders right now understand how deep the frustration is right now in just middle America?
I do think that there has to be some progress made with corporations that are primarily based along the coasts, that are in blue cities, realizing that conservatives, that the average American who skews conservative feels alienated, feels that somehow I'm not liked, I'm not appreciated, I'm not catered to. I don't want to be coddled But I do want at least to be respected by these places that I consider to be American enterprises. And what corporate America could do, this is the premise of this spot we're doing here, right? What can corporate America do to just begin to repair some of that impression that has been built up, whether it's fairly or unfairly over the years, and coming out and saying something in the wake of this horrible evil that has been perpetrated upon Charlie Kirk and upon the millions of Americans who look to him. It was an easy opportunity to repair some of that damage, and really nobody outside of, really Major League Baseball teams took advantage of that.
And some NFL teams. My Buffalo Bills did show Charlie Kirk along with many other NFL teams. So we have to say that's, in a way, that's progress,
Yes.
at least acknowledge this. But as you say, it shouldn't be hard to disassociate from political violence and try to unite the country. It's a unifying message. The only people that should offend are people who are for, in some horrible way, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And I just think this moment is really important for corporate America to take a look in the mirror, Andrew, because you have to reconnect with middle America. You've lost the way you sell products is people feel experientially, right, connected to the product. They feel like this is, part of how I be an American. This is part of how I live my life. I have a good emotional response to the product. And what you have now are millions of people who would, I don't know if they understand the danger, who would leave if they could, if there was an alternative. This has happened. It happened with Bud Light. It's happened with other brands as well, where they're hanging on by a thread. People are looking for an excuse to reject some of these companies because in their minds, they feel as if these companies, are not on their side. And we're talking about a divide where, we say half the country, but look what's happening. It's more like 50, 60% of the country. And for God's sakes, it's probably more than 50, 60% of the country, I hope, who is appalled by what just happens and wants to renounce political violence. So what is it going to take to just give the sort of messaging that we know what would happen if it was on the other side, right? If the political leanings were reversed, we would see advertising that's sort of like PSAs that are heartwarming, that are about, this is America, we have different beliefs, but we don't kill each other, damn it. Let's acknowledge what just happened and let's come together as a nation. And you can do that in all kinds of ways, but we're not seeing it at all.
I'm concerned, Matt, that we have moved beyond the point where people will even take such sentiments as being anything but platitudes. Mm-hmm. I know for a fact, because we have corporate clients at the firm, the executives at these places are very disturbed. Charlie and his work was not maybe apparent to them, but his death absolutely caught their attention, because Luigi Mangione and the slaying of that executive, that caught their attention too.
United Healthcare.
Yeah. So realizing, and really corporate America needs to realize that your allies are not with the radical left. Your allies are not with the people who were once in power, pressing down on you, forcing you to make these bad business decisions, to alienate your primary customers, to distance you from your fellow Americans, and that these things will not be platitudes if you make these messages.
Yes, and also it's unifying. The thing about this is what we're describing is not something that's even political, right or left. We're describing like meta politics. Like, do we want violence, political violence, to be normalized in our country? No, we don't. And we want a unifying message to bring Americans together. And that's the puzzling thing about this, I think, for so many people in the audience is, we're talking about people who just routinely think it's okay to slap down millions of people, half the country. And, corporations don't have an interest in that, really. So now is almost an easy win, potentially is out there for people to just come out and say some normal things that unify us and that reach out, to millions of people.
When you look at the way that corporate America, I actually take heart in the fact that you're saying that people out there are, maybe they didn't know about Charlie when he was alive, but they have certainly seen the love that has been pouring out all across the country for Charlie since then. So when we look at this road ahead, right, this is going to be a long road. This isn't just something that is going to be a quick fix, because there are a lot of people, and I'll just keep saying middle America, because that's what it is. all of these corporations have been so leftists for so long. So what is that kind of first or second step that we need to start seeing in this landscape?
I tell corporate clients, just be who you are. If you're telling me we are Americans, we don't want to be seen as politicized or politicizing, then just act that way. Be American. Be unifiers. Talk to your customers. But we've had this activist class on the left who has made that, what I'm just describing, in and of itself a political act. If you are going to be outright and explicitly American, it now means you are racist because America is systemically racist, right? If you talk about Americans, you become somebody who is embracing whiteness. And this is simply not true. The vast majority of Americans don't see themselves and don't see their country this way. So embracing what Matt is describing, these easy unifying messages that are normal, that the vast majority of people in Middle America want to hear in times where there is trouble. You can't always hear that only from the government. And corporations can't outsource, just like they didn't before, where they said, hey, we're not going to take all this political activity upon ourselves. In order to make people understand that this is something that they are now beginning to rectify, it doesn't mean zero political messaging. It just means very different political messaging, realizing that we actually do need for them to say something, anything that causes us to not lose heart, because that is what's happening right now. It is people actually losing hope that their institutions and that their enterprises are actually for them.
Yeah, when I say easy win, I mean we've talked about this before. What I mean by that is you're neutralizing yourself. Like you're washing yourself clean in a way, right? You're getting away from the impression that millions of people have. If you do this, if you give these unifying messages rejecting political violence, you're getting away from the impression that you were politicized before for one side. But this is just a return to common sense, in my opinion, and sanity. But Andrew, when you look at the future, I mean, what are the chances you think that this moment does become, even if it hasn't happened yet, transformational in the culture in some way, and that it does cause people to think and slowly start acting and walking away from the heavy signaling that we've seen in the last 5 to 10 years to the political left?
I think there's good chances. I've already seen some of the early signs, and this doesn't just take place on social media. It takes place in boardrooms. It takes place where decisions have to be made. And Charlie's courage, I think, is what's inspiring. We've talked about this before, Matt, you and I privately. Charlie's entrepreneurial spirit and the way that he was able to be a connector and the way that he wanted to get things done. He was able to bring people together and have them talk about things and have them work out deals, I think is in the spirit often of how Americans think of themselves. We aren't a naturally divisive people, right? E pluribus unum, out of many one. But we're struggling with the one right now. We know there's all these different concerns. We know there's all these different people. But the one, I think, is what especially this America 250 celebration needs to be about. And I don't say that Charlie's death was providence, but the fact that you could have a figure like this die really just right on the cusp of what should be a celebration, and now it is going to be somewhat of a statement. I think it must be a statement about what makes us one, not just what makes us all different from each other, but what are the unifying aspects? What is the definition of an American, and what are these things that make us one people? And this is where I believe corporations will, and I know are, going to make a stand. And so this is my hope. basically more to come in 2026.
We have all seen the corporations that went out there and stood with Black Lives Matter. And at this point in time, you can't just say that it's not just as easy to stand with Charlie Kirk or Middle America. So if you had one message to American CEOs right now, Andrew, that you could go out there and just say, what would that be?
Just be who you are. And if you're an American, be an American. If you serve Americans, talk to Americans. Be transparent. Be forthright. And don't worry about what this small portion of this activist class might feel, make you, think about worry. This is a political moment. You are going to have to speak politically. You are going to, in some ways, have to act politically. But there has never been a better time, both with the really the martyrdom of a great American and a Christian man, but also with this anniversary of the birth of this great nation.
Very well said. So great to have you here, and because this is something that needs to start happening. We can't have all the corporations going one direction and just staying over there into perpetuity. They need to start coming back in and grabbing the conservative audience. If they say they're American, this is where they live. Andrew Beck, thanks so much.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks, Matt.
When we come back, we will talk about the latest, the Dallas ICE incident yesterday. We'll have the latest for you next. Well, it's time to share the arrows. We spend a lot of time talking about culture and politics, I should say. It's so easy for me. But if you're a woman, listen up. If there's a woman in your life that you care about, you need to know about Share the Arrows. It's happening October 11th right here in Dallas, and it's hosted by BlazeTV's own Allie Beth Stuckey. And it's built to encourage, equip, and speak truth to women that are trying to stand firm in today's world. So if you've been craving real encouragement and biblical truth, this is for you. If you're a man out there, dad, husband, brother, and you have a woman in your life who needs to know about this, keep this in mind, because the culture is pulling us in the wrong direction. And this is a chance to reset and get grounded in the truth. All the tickets and details are at sharethearrows.com. That's sharethearrows.com. The liberal media swears there's no connection between Democrats' reckless rhetoric on ICE and the surge of left-wing violence. But the reality is undeniable. Democrats' war on ICE is fueling a firestorm of left-wing chaos across America. California governor and 2028 presidential hopeful Gavin Newsom went on with Stephen Colbert this week, and he was bragging about pushing laws that put ICE agents' lives in danger.
That's happening in the United States of America. Masked men jumping out of unmarked cars, people disappearing, no due process. No oversight, zero accountability happening in the United States of America today. People ask, well, is authoritarianism, you're being hyperbolic? Bull, we're being hyperbolic. If you're a black and brown community, it's here in this country. And so I'm deeply proud that I had the privilege of signing the nation's first bill to address the issue of masking. Also to require, you have simple identification, to your point. I mean, if some guy jumped out of an unmarked car in a van with a mask on, tried to grab me, I mean, by definition, you're going to push back.
Well, we do need some pushback. To that soundbite, acting ICE Director Todd Lyons appeared on with Glenn Beck earlier today, and he had this response to Gavin Newsom.
And honestly, I think the governor's comments are disgusting. Criminal illegal aliens flock to his state because they know they can do their crimes there. You know, he said that, and then the next day, look what happened at the ICE facility in Dallas. You know, he's saying that he would push back against, masked men or jump out of a van. Well, and also he says that people don't get due process. Every one of the individuals we arrest do get due process. Or in the cases of the ones that have final orders of deportation from years back that they've ignored the rule of law, they had their due process, had every appeal possible, but they didn't leave the country. Yet it's comments like that are causing all the issues. I truly believe the governor shouldn't have said that. To say that people should push back and he supports pushing back against ICE, that's just totally wrong.
And we see the leftists right now that are trying to say, "Oh, we need to tone down the rhetoric." Well, Matt, you have you have Gavin Newsom going on with Stephen Colbert, and then the very next day, a sniper opened fires at the Dallas ICE facility.
Yeah, and we'll get into that terrible shooting that occurred yesterday. But this is one of 3 attacks in Texas, alone
This summer.
against ICE this summer. Like this is a trend. This is not something where there's a one-off, just happened. This is a trend. And it's a trend that obviously comes from the fact that there are people who despise the rule of law, and they're taking out their disagreements with anger, and the anger for the lunatics is going to be pushed into action the more you have this absolutely reckless rhetoric from people like Gavin Newsom going on, and they show no signs of wanting to stop. So, sadly, I hope I'm wrong, but I think there's going to be a lot more violence that's going to increase, before we can finally put a stop to it, because you can see the momentum picking up, and you can see people like Gavin Newsom, who wants to be president. Shame on this guy, just doesn't care. He's just going to keep on going. He's going to keep on saying this stuff.
Yeah, and we have the Atlantic headline that's just going out there saying that for the first time in over 30 years, attacks by the far left outnumber those by the far right. Well, I mean, we can debate all of that, the far left and the far right of all of it. But when you look at it, even the Atlantic has to go through and directly address, oh crap, it's the leftists that are doing this.
This is where, the Atlantic actually published a semi-honest article. I mean, they're wrong about the past where they would count everything as right wing, but they have to acknowledge, at least in this moment, that there is a rise of left-wing violence in this country, and it is a scourge, and it's picking up, and it's not slowing down. I want to run through some of these 3 shootings in Texas that already happened this year, because for a lot of people, you just don't hear about it because the media doesn't cover it. You go to McAllen, Texas. I was just with the mayor of McAllen at a Heritage Foundation event yesterday. Great guy, great mayor. McAllen is famous for being in that border area of Texas that flipped, right? Largely Hispanic area that's now Trump voters. It's all red, and he was the first Republican mayor there, I think, in a long time or ever. But in McAllen, you have a man fires at a U.S. Border Patrol facility. And he is shot and killed, thankfully, but not before he injures a police officer. Then you go to the ambush, the ICE detention center. You got 10 charged in attempted murder in ambush of an officer. This was an organized attack. No one has really given this its due. I mean, it was reported everywhere when it first happened, but you had 10 people charged with attempted murder. They were getting together to plan, murdering an officer. What's going on here, right? Who got them together? Why are they doing this? Why are all these people doing this? And then you just had, of course, the shooting that everyone knows that just occurred really very close to where we are right now, yesterday. So this is not going to go away. It's going to have to be confronted directly and squarely by the administration, by state and local authorities. And in the media, we have to continue to call these people into account, because right now they're lying, and the Pinocchio nose is out to here. And I think that most Americans are starting to realize and pick up on it, that this is a problem. And of course, all of this is happening after we witnessed Charlie Kirk get shot down in broad daylight live not even 2 weeks ago.
And I can tell you it's going to continue to happen, because the leftists out there are trying to say that Antifa doesn't even exist. Julio Rosas wrote an article for theblaze.com, and Democrats are trying to say, oh, Antifa, just a myth. I'm sorry, but Matt, if we can't actually go through, even if Donald Trump is going out there designating Antifa as a terrorist organization, if the leftists are still like, no, not a real thing, right? We have to have reality in this country.
Yeah, and so Antifa is a great example of this. I mean, they've been saying this from the beginning, and it's just sort of, don't believe, who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? And of course, Antifa is a real thing. They have lawyers, they have all kinds of, but they're a decentralized group, and they decentralize for a reason, to sort of hide, from the public. They want to defend themselves. They want a low attack angle. Why? Because they do bad things. So this is absolutely ridiculous. We're going to continue to hear this garbage about Antifa not being real, but that will all change if, in fact, we start going after them both internationally and in this country, because the law will be there, the precedent will be there, and the unlawful actions will be there. I mean, the fact that we live in a society that in some cities in the Pacific Northwest, I'm looking at you, places like Seattle, Portland, you have these people nightly, right, for months, terrorizing areas of the city. We're done with that. But when you're done with it and you start to push back on them, this is what you're seeing happen with ICE. When you decide we don't want millions of people here illegally, we are going to actually, follow through and prosecute the law. We're going to have law and order. We're going to have the rule of law. Once you start doing that, they start to freak out and have temper tantrums, and they start to strike back. And especially if they're radical loonies, which a lot of them have been taught to be, they are going to commit more and more acts of violence. And that's what we see happening. This is not, it's not me being a pessimist. It's just logical. We know that these people think this way, and now that the Trump administration is taking action, they're going to snap back. But if they stay strong, eventually you will rid America of this scourge. But I'm just telling you all, I hope I'm wrong, but it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Well, if you're a low information voter out there, they're still plentiful. I wish that they were not. But Jon Favreau, if you're a fan of the Iron Man series, you'll know who Jon Favreau is. He had an exchange on X with the Vice President, J.D. Vance, and Jon Favreau was saying the Vice President is not a reliable source of information. This is now the 5th or 6th time that he's posted a political take that's contradicted by the facts from his own law enforcement agencies. And this is when J.D. Vance comes out and is a man of the people. JD said the gunman had anti-ICE messaging carved on the bullets that he used. What precisely did I get wrong, dipshit? And that is another I don't really care, Margaret moment. We have so many of these moments that JD Vance has been giving this country. And it's just like, oh man, here's just exactly what everybody wants to say. And JD has a great way about him to just be a man of the people.
He does. And so does President Trump. If you look at the poll strain 12, the Trump's response, President Trump also just went out and said what you're not supposed to say, what no one wants to admit. This is what they deny. All these attacks aren't really from the result of the radical left. And he just said this violence is the result of radical left Democrats constantly demonizing law enforcement, calling for ICE to be demolished, comparing ICE officers to Nazis. When you say these kinds of things, like, what do you think is going to happen? That's why the rhetoric is irresponsible. That's why it is reckless. And so, for the love of God, you would think that there'd be a lot of people in the Democratic Party who are going to slowly realize that they have a chance to help stop the bloodshed and help unite America by denouncing this sort of rhetoric and this sort of radicalism.
Well, Donald Trump, we love him. We love what he does here on the show. When we come back, we're going to get your replies to his latest improvements that he's made at the White House next. President Trump unveiled the new Walk of Fame at the White House yesterday. So this is a new, beautiful image. Of course, they're all gold frames. It's President Trump. You see everybody there, all the presidents and George W. Bush. Okay, you get there. You get to Barack Obama. Okay, Trump won. And then the autopen. That's right. It is the autopen, not Joe Biden, as it should be. And then Trump 2.0. We love it, Matthew Peterson. We love the autopen as Joe Biden's president.
This is where, Mike Howell's point to everyone in the administration who needs to get the autopen prosecutions done. The president cares about that one, and you can see that here. It needs to be memorialized until something is done about what we just went through.
And this is proof that you can just do things. So I wrote on X that Joe Biden is the autopen. So whose picture would you change next, and what would it be? Kathy starts us off and says that Bill Clinton's portrait in the blue dress. There is so much going on there. Of course, that is the picture that we know that was hanging at Epstein's house. So fully loaded for that response for Kathy to start us off.
Okay, that one, that's a banger. That's hot and spicy, and I think that image is, sadly, indelibly marked in all of our brains once we realize that was in Epstein's, possession. A picture of Clinton in a blue dress. Yes, you can't forget it once you see it, and the fact that they were even joking about that is very puzzling and very sick.
You say Obama. Obama is the next one up because Carl wrote that we should put a burqa on Obama.
That was going to be Jill's pick.
We need the spicy takes, and you guys are bringing them today, so I appreciate that. Burqa Obama.
I think that is hilarious, and I would laugh if it was there. But I think Obama was just kind of nothing, But I bet you that Jill disagrees with me.
I will I'll table that one for right now. Let's go ahead and get to Roy, who has an honorable mention here, who says that puppet master George Soros could be added somewhere. Maybe a portrait in a row above with all the strings dangling down, which is exactly what should happen. I mean, that is what George Soros's role has been. He has been the puppet master forever. So if he wanted to just go through and maybe, I mean, Halloween is coming up. This could be a good little, little Halloween decoration above the photos, especially over the last one that we just had to talk about, Barack Obama.
That's a pretty good one. But Soros, hey, it looks like they may actually prosecute Open Society and his organizations. People are actually talking about that this week based on some information that Glenn Beck threw on a show about how they fund all these radical groups. So I want to see that happen even more than the picture. I want to see the government take action against his whole network of organizations.
That is Glenn Beck coming full circle right there. If we get things that are actually happening against George Soros, everybody in the building will be very happy. One of the things that I want to see, though, is what we were talking with Andrew Beck earlier about, is just corporations taking ownership and accountability for where we are right now as a country. And just understanding that you can't go out there and have all of the leftist messaging and be all pro Black Lives Matter and then stay completely silent where we are right now in this moment in time.
Yeah, I mean, this is, Andrew works with a lot of corporations and all across the aisle or whatever, just professionally. I think his message is one that's just very straightforward. It's not even really political. It's you've alienated all these people. You got political. You got damn political for a long, long time. And now you got to come back to middle America and make things right. And you don't have to do that by saying, I support Trump or something like that, which they're not going to do. But they do it for the other side. Okay, we can forgive that as long as you just come back with a message that says, hey, we reject and denounce political violence that's increasing throughout America. And this is America. This is what America's about. And unite people with a positive message that just the only thing it's going to exclude are people who are okay with mowing people down in the streets. And that's not America. So this is an easy win for companies that have already alienated half the country to unite everyone, come back around and do the right thing.
Because we know that trust in institutions and corporations is at such a low point right now that I think that it would actually make a difference if people came out and just said, hey, we're with you, right? We are all hurting and we know that there's a lot of crazy things happening, but we can come together for this moment, right? Just right now.
They can also be heroes because the thing that we're not saying is that if you don't do this, you're actually a coward, right? Because they're afraid of the radical left coming after them. And then we did just have the radical left gun down a corporate CEO, right? A leader in the streets, like an animal. I mean, so if you want to stop that, you don't want to live in that America, you need to start coming out now and be brave now because it's only going to get harder as time goes on.
That is the truth. It only gets harder from here. So make your choices, choose wisely, and we'll see you back here tomorrow. Thanks for watching, everybody.